Shadows have always lingered behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, but none as cold or complicated as the tension between King Charles and Prince Andrew. Long before the public scandals, long before the headlines turned brutal, there were whispers, moments of quiet resentment, strained glances, and unspoken wounds stretching back decades. Those closest to the throne say the king's true feelings ran far deeper than anyone imagined, shaped by rivalry, disappointment, and buried family secrets. But what happened between these two brothers that left Charles harboring such powerful dislike? From brothers to strangers. In the years following his divorce, Charles's patience with his younger brother Andrew began to wear thin. What had once been minor embarrassments, small scandals that popped up and faded away, suddenly looked trivial compared to the tidal wave of accusations that would later engulf Andrew. Everything changed when the world learned of Andrew's close association with Jeffrey Epstein, the already convicted sex offender whose name had become synonymous with scandal and exploitation. Overnight, Andrew's reputation darkened. What had been whispers turned into global headlines, and the consequences were swift. By 2019, under enormous pressure from the public and the palace, Andrew was pushed into stepping back from official royal duties, a move that sent shockwaves through the monarchy and deeply strained his bond with Charles. Charles, of course, was no stranger to personal crises. He had survived the heartbreak of Princess Diana's death, endured the fury of a grieving nation, and worked for years to rebuild his standing. Yet, none of his own trials compared to the damage caused by the Epstein affair. The most explosive allegations claimed Andrew had engaged in sexual acts with Virginia Giuffre, who said she had been trafficked by Epstein while still underage. Andrew denied every accusation, but the controversy refused to fade. Eventually, in a move widely interpreted as an attempt to quiet the storm, Andrew reached a private settlement with Giuffre, reportedly worth millions. The fallout was devastating. Queen Elizabeth II, known for her steadiness and loyalty, took the painful step of stripping Andrew of several patronages and military titles. Charities distanced themselves. Public sympathy evaporated. Despite everything, Andrew apparently clung to a fragile hope that King Charles's coronation could be his opportunity for a royal fresh start, a chance to step back into the spotlight, reshape his image, and salvage some of his lost dignity.
You can, on occasions, get extremely lonely and isolated.
Yet, Buckingham Palace had firmly decided otherwise. He was denied any formal role in the historic ceremonies, relegated to merely riding down the Mall toward Westminster Abbey. There, the crowds greeted him not with cheers, but with scattered boos, a stark, unmissable reminder that for many Britons, past scandals lingered, forgiveness was scarce, and the shadow of controversy remained firmly cast. Looking ahead, royal experts doubt the brothers will ever return to an easy relationship. Richard Palmer, a seasoned commentator, believes the strain between them is both deep and ongoing. The central problem, he says, is Andrew's future. What role, if any, he can safely occupy. Palmer argues that there is simply no place for Andrew in public life anymore, and that any misstep, especially involving money, could tarnish the monarchy again. Meanwhile, Charles appears to be embracing his kingship with purpose and energy, stepping into the role he waited a lifetime to hold. Andrew's situation is far bleaker. Reports suggest he is struggling financially, with no personal inheritance from either parent. According to royal insiders, most of the Queen and Prince Philip's assets were transferred directly to Charles under a tax exemption designed to protect royal wealth. And so, the two brothers stand in stark contrast, one ascending to the highest point of his life's calling, the other sinking into obscurity, controversy, and financial uncertainty. Their story, once shaped by sibling rivalry and royal duty, is now defined by scandal, silence, and an uncertain road ahead. So what informed the public of the king's hatred towards his brother, Andrew? How did King Charles make his animosity known? Let's delve into the details of how Andrew lost his titles and his home. The king's verdict. King Charles III finally took the final, unmistakable step in cutting Prince Andrew loose from the titles and privileges that once defined his royal life. What began quietly a week earlier, when Charles started the paperwork to strip his younger brother of his remaining honors, has now become official in the most formal and symbolic way possible. According to a notice published in the Gazette, the United Kingdom's official public record, the King has issued letters patent sealed with the Great Seal of the Realm, the ancient emblem that signals a monarch's unquestionable approval. Once that seal is applied, there is no debate, no appeal. The decision becomes law. The notice makes the King's ruling painfully clear. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince. Dated November 3, 2025, and published publicly on November 5, it is the final word. With a single document, centuries of royal tradition and Andrew's own birthright fell away. The man once introduced as His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, Duke of York, is now simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Buckingham Palace had already hinted that this moment was coming. In a statement released on October 30th, the palace announced that Andrew would be leaving Royal Lodge, his longtime home on the Windsor estate. Instead, he will relocate to a smaller residence on the King's private Sandringham estate, a quiet, slightly isolated property far from the grandeur he once enjoyed. For a man whose identity was shaped by royal privilege, this shift is more than a change of address. It is a symbolic demotion, a physical reminder of how much his world has shrunk. Though Andrew has long denied wrongdoing, the damage to the monarchy's reputation was severe, and the public backlash unrelenting. In 2022, Queen Elizabeth II stripped him of his military titles and royal patronages. Now, with Charles on the throne, the final ties have been severed. The issuance of letters patent, sealed with the Great Seal, shows that the King is doing far more than reassigning titles within the royal family. He is boldly redefining the monarchy's image with clear, purposeful authority. This is no fleeting decision or subtle reprimand. It is a historic, permanent move, carried out transparently, recorded for all to see, and destined to leave a lasting mark on the crown's legacy. For Andrew, the consequences are profound. A man born into royalty now stands outside it, no longer a prince, no longer an HRH, no longer anchored to the privileges he once took for granted. For the royal family, it marks a sharp boundary, one that draws a line between the past and the future, between scandal and survival. With this move, King Charles sends a message to the world. The monarchy will protect itself, even if it means cutting away one of its own. But what exactly caused the hatred? Why would the king hate his own blood more than anyone? Let's dive into the details of Prince Andrew's controversy with Epstein. Allegations, scandal, and secrets. In March 2011, BBC News reported that Prince Andrew's friendship with American financier Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender, was stirring growing controversy and attracting sharp criticism. The scrutiny was intense, with many questioning whether Andrew should continue serving as a British trade envoy. Media coverage intensified after Andrew's former wife, Sarah Ferguson, revealed that he had helped arrange for Epstein to pay off £15,000 of her personal debts, a revelation that added fuel to the fire. Even before this disclosure, Andrew had been seen with Epstein in December 2010, casually strolling through Central Park during a visit to New York City, a meeting that only heightened public concern. By July 2011, the pressure became too great. Andrew's official role as trade envoy was terminated, and reports suggested he cut all ties with Epstein. Here's a rephrased and expanded version of your extract in about 170 words, making it more elaborate, engaging, and easier to follow. The allegations against Andrew took a chilling and serious turn on December 30th, 2014, claiming that Andrew was among several high-profile individuals implicated in sexual encounters with a minor, later identified as Virginia Giuffre, who was then known as Virginia Roberts. Giuffre asserted that Jeffrey Epstein had trafficked her for sex, and that she had been forced into sexual activity with Andrew on multiple occasions. She described incidents in London in 2001, when she was just 17, as well as subsequent encounters in New York, and on Epstein's private island, Little St. James, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Giuffre also alleged that Epstein had paid her $15,000 specifically to be involved with Andrew during the London encounter. Supporting her claims, flight logs indicate that both Andrew and Giuffre were present in the locations and on the dates she described, lending weight to the timeline she presented. The revelations painted a disturbing picture, implicating powerful figures in a web of exploitation and abuse. Giuffre, however, described being under immense pressure, stating that she wouldn't have dared object, as Epstein had the means, connections, and influence to have her abducted or harmed. A civil lawsuit she filed against Prince Andrew was eventually settled in February 2022 for an undisclosed sum, bringing some legal closure but leaving many questions about the broader network of exploitation. In August 2019, more troubling details emerged from court filings in a defamation case between Giuffre and Maxwell. Another woman, Johanna Sjoberg, testified that Andrew had placed his hand on her breast while posing for a photo with a spitting image puppet at Epstein's mansion. Around the same time, the New Republic published a 2013 email exchange between John Brockman and Evgeny Morozov, which described a British man nicknamed Andy receiving a foot massage from two Russian women at Epstein's New York residence in September 2010. Brockman later claimed that he realized the man in question was none other than Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. Together, these revelations painted a deeply troubling picture of Andrew's associations and alleged behavior. They underscore a pattern of connections to Epstein that persisted over years, even after Epstein's criminal convictions, and raise serious questions about judgment, accountability, and complicity at the highest levels of society. What began as an uncomfortable friendship had evolved into a scandal that not only threatened Andrew's public role, but also implicated him in allegations of sexual misconduct with minors, leaving a lasting stain on his reputation and sparking worldwide debate. So, what was Prince Andrew's early life like? Was there any remarkable event that is linked to his birth or childhood? Let's dig into the details of the royal beginnings of Prince Andrew's life. Prince Andrew's early years. In the summer of 1959, Queen Elizabeth II embarked on a significant 45-day tour of Canada, a journey that would blend the ceremonial duties of monarchy with personal revelation. It was during this royal tour, in June and July, that the Queen discovered she was expecting a child. At the time, the news remained closely guarded, kept private amidst the pomp and schedule of official engagements. It was only upon her return to London that Buckingham Palace made a careful announcement. On the 7th of August, the palace revealed that the Queen would be withdrawing from public engagements, subtly confirming the pregnancy while maintaining an aura of discretion befitting the royal household. On the 19th of February 1960, at precisely 3:30 in the afternoon, Buckingham Palace welcomed the birth of Prince Andrew in the Belgian suite, adding a third child and second son to the family of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. His full name, Andrew Albert Christian Edward, was given during his christening in the palace's music room on the 8th of April 1960, a ceremony steeped in tradition and royal protocol. His birth marked a significant historical note. Andrew was the first child born to a reigning British monarch since Princess Beatrice, daughter of Queen Victoria, in 1857, highlighting both continuity and the evolving lineage of the monarchy. Like his elder siblings, Prince Charles and Princess Anne, as well as his younger brother Edward, Andrew's earliest years were carefully structured under the guidance of a governess, who oversaw his early education within the walls of Buckingham Palace. This nurturing environment was intended not only to ensure academic foundations, but also to instill the values and comportment expected of a future prince. As he grew, his formal schooling continued at Heatherdown School, located near Ascot in Berkshire, where he began to experience life outside the immediate sphere of royal influence. In September 1973, Andrew followed in the footsteps of his father and elder brother by enrolling at Gordonstoun in Moray, Scotland, a school renowned for its rigorous curriculum and emphasis on character building. Here, his personality began to reveal itself more vividly to peers and teachers alike. He was nicknamed the Sniggerer by his schoolmates, a playful nod to his fondness for off-color jokes and the uninhibited laughter that often followed them. This moniker captured a facet of Andrew's youthful character: mischievous, irreverent, and unwilling to take himself too seriously, even within the disciplined confines of a demanding educational environment. Andrew's schooling also included international exposure, broadening his perspective beyond the United Kingdom. From January to June 1977, he participated in an exchange program at Lakefield College School in Canada, an experience that allowed him to immerse himself in a different culture and approach to learning while continuing to develop independence and resilience.
On that particular day that we now understand is the date.
Returning to Gordonstoun, he completed his education there in July 1979, leaving with A-levels in English, history, and economics, subjects that would serve as both intellectual grounding and a framework for his future public duties. Throughout his early life, Prince Andrew's upbringing reflected a careful blend of tradition and modernity. His formative years combined the private instruction and oversight of palace life with the challenges and camaraderie of boarding schools, shaping a young prince accustomed to both privilege and responsibility. This foundation, steeped in royal history and personal exploration, prepared him to navigate the complex demands of public life while retaining elements of individuality that were evident even in the hallways of Gordonstoun. From the understated announcement of his mother's pregnancy to his final school days marked by academic achievement and spirited humor, Andrew's early journey was defined by both the weight of history and the unfolding promise of his own unique identity within the monarchy. What was Andrew's relationship with King Charles like? Were there signs of animosity from his early life? Let's take a close look at the bond between King Charles and Prince Andrew in his early life. Growing up royal. King Charles and his younger brother, Prince Andrew, have not always shared a tense or distant relationship, though public perception often assumes royal siblings are forever poised in a delicate, formal balance. In fact, during their early years, the bond between the two princes was surprisingly close. Despite a 12-year age gap, the brothers found moments of genuine connection, a testament to the rare instances of childhood normalcy they could claim amidst the pressures of royal life. Growing up as a prince might conjure images of fairy tale childhoods, vast estates, glittering balls, and endless adoration. Yet, a closer look at Charles's formative years paints a different, more nuanced picture. Beneath the pomp and ceremony, the heir to the throne experienced a childhood punctuated by long absences of parental attention, particularly that of his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. The young Charles often found himself navigating a world of expectation without the constant presence of the monarch, as Queen Elizabeth was frequently away on official tours or accompanying her husband, Prince Philip, on naval engagements. The formalities of royalty left little room for everyday childhood interactions, and the young prince's early years were shaped as much by duty as by affection. By the time Prince Andrew was born in 1960, the family dynamic had evolved. Queen Elizabeth, having firmly established her role as monarch, approached motherhood with a slightly different perspective. The experience of raising Charles had informed her approach to her younger sons, and she seemed more willing to embrace the joys of family life alongside her official responsibilities. Historian Robert Lacey observes that the Queen decided that she had done her duty by her country and took the best part of 18 months off work to produce and enjoy her second family, the young princes, Andrew and Edward. This period marked a rare window when the monarchy, often perceived as a rigid institution, allowed itself to nurture family bonds with a little more flexibility and intimacy. For Andrew and Charles, childhood experiences were inevitably intertwined with public duties. The brothers often appeared together at ceremonial events, a visible symbol of unity within the royal family. From charity functions to state visits and even royal weddings, they were tasked with representing not only their family, but also the enduring traditions of the British monarchy. These appearances demanded poise beyond their years, an early immersion into public life that would shape their understanding of duty, loyalty, and performance. In a sense, their relationship was forged in part through these shared experiences, a connection built not solely on personal affection, but also on a mutual understanding of the responsibilities imposed upon them from birth. Despite the pressure of constant scrutiny, there were glimpses of genuine camaraderie between Charles and Andrew. Observers often noted their interactions during public engagements, moments where sibling familiarity and playfulness occasionally surfaced amidst the decorum of royal protocol. These instances, while fleeting, hint at the natural affection that can exist even within a world dictated by strict codes of behavior and expectation. However, the differences in their formative years also set the stage for potential tension. Charles had been shaped by long periods of relative solitude and early exposure to the rigors of monarchy. Andrew, meanwhile, benefited from a mother slightly more available, able to provide warmth and attention that Charles had often been denied.
So whatever faith you have or whether you have none, it is in this life-giving light.
These contrasting experiences inevitably influenced their personalities and approaches to life within the royal spotlight. While Andrew might have enjoyed a more hands-on maternal presence, Charles had to learn resilience in a world that demanded responsibility far beyond his age. As the brothers grew older, their paths continued to intertwine. Public engagements, philanthropic work, and ceremonial duties kept them in the spotlight, reinforcing both the visibility and the expectations of their roles. Their appearances together were often choreographed to showcase unity and stability, projecting an image of the monarchy as a seamless institution. Yet behind the polished veneer, the complexities of their relationship, shaped by age, experience, and the unique pressures of royal life, continued to evolve, laying the foundation for both connection and rivalry in the decades to come. Ultimately, the early bond between Charles and Andrew was a mixture of genuine sibling closeness, shared responsibility, and the extraordinary demands of royal life. It was a relationship forged under public gaze, shaped by duty, and tempered by the realities of growing up in the gilded cage of monarchy. While history often highlights later strains between the brothers, their formative years reveal a story of connection, adaptation, and the quiet resilience required to navigate life as princes in the most scrutinized family in the world. With King Charles's decisive action and resentment for his brother, what does the future hold for Prince Andrew? Let's delve into the details of the parliamentary investigation on Prince Andrew's lifestyle. The fall of immunity. For decades, Prince Andrew seemed untouchable, shielded by the very institution that defined his life, the British royal family. His status, pedigree, and proximity to power acted as a protective barrier, insulating him from scandals and sparing him from the kind of accountability that ordinary citizens face every day. The public, accustomed to seeing royals as figures above reproach, largely assumed that Andrew's finances and lifestyle were either managed discreetly within the royal framework or somehow self-sustaining. Yet that perception is crumbling. The once reliable buffer of royal privilege is no longer impenetrable, and the consequences of past choices now threaten to spill far beyond the carefully controlled environment of palaces and ceremonial events. In recent months, the spotlight has sharpened, focusing on Andrew in ways that could reshape his place within both the monarchy and public life. No longer shielded entirely by the ceremonial pomp and ancestral legacy of his family, he faces mounting scrutiny from political, legal, and societal corners alike. Calls for accountability, long murmured behind closed doors, are growing louder, and the questions surrounding his finances, lifestyle, and associations are no longer easily dismissed. For the royal family, this is a precarious moment. The protective veil that once rendered Andrew virtually untouchable is lifting, and what lies beneath may have ramifications the monarchy cannot fully control or contain. Central to this unfolding drama is the intense examination of Andrew's finances. A British parliamentary committee has launched a formal investigation into how the prince has been able to maintain his residence at Royal Lodge, a grand and historically significant royal property, while simultaneously sustaining a lifestyle marked by luxury, travel, and high-profile engagements. What makes this inquiry particularly striking is the disconnect it exposes.
We keep up a firm pace because there's so much to do, there are so many opportunities.
Andrew has reportedly had no major verifiable source of income in recent years, leaving observers and officials alike questioning the origins and management of the funds that have allowed him to live so opulently. It is an unusual situation for a member of the royal family, one that blends the personal with the institutional and raises questions about accountability, privilege, and the public's right to know. The committee's investigation is not merely procedural. It carries a symbolic weight that extends far beyond accounting ledgers and bank statements. At stake is the principle that no individual, regardless of title, birthright, or family connections, should operate entirely outside the reach of scrutiny. In scrutinizing Andrew's finances, lawmakers are challenging centuries of royal immunity, probing whether his access to wealth has been entirely legitimate, or if it reflects a hidden network of support shielded from public oversight. The inquiry also examines the broader implications for the monarchy. If members of the royal family can live extravagantly without clear sources of income, how does that affect public trust in an institution funded largely by taxpayers and expected to maintain a degree of transparency? For Andrew personally, the investigation represents a turning point. The protective layers of royal privilege, once seemingly impervious, are now being pierced by official oversight and public curiosity. The questions raised are deeply uncomfortable and potentially damaging, exposing him to criticism that could extend into legal, financial, and reputational realms. The scrutiny also underscores a cultural shift. The public, media, and political bodies are less willing to accept the notion that a royal's position alone justifies insulation from accountability. Where once scandal could be quietly managed behind palace doors, today it unfolds on parliamentary floors, in investigative reports, and across international headlines, reaching audiences who demand transparency and justice. The unfolding situation also carries broader implications for the monarchy itself. Royal families have historically relied on a delicate balance of tradition, secrecy, and ceremonial authority to protect their own.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
Andrew's predicament challenges that balance, demonstrating that modern institutions are increasingly subject to public expectation and political oversight. If a royal can be questioned about personal wealth, lifestyle, and conduct, it sets a precedent that may extend to other family members, fundamentally reshaping the relationship between royals and the institutions that surround them. The monarchy, long accustomed to operating in a semi-protected bubble, now faces the challenge of reconciling privilege with accountability in a world that demands transparency. Ultimately, what is happening with Andrew is not just a matter of individual scrutiny. It is a reflection of the evolving dynamics between royalty, government, and society. His reduced status, once inconceivable, now leaves him vulnerable to forces outside the family's control. The parliamentary investigation into his finances is more than a review of bank statements. It is a test of whether long-standing systems of protection for the elite can withstand modern demands for accountability. For Andrew, the consequences of this scrutiny could be far-reaching, impacting not only his personal freedom and reputation, but also the perception of the royal family as a whole. No longer merely a prince in a gilded cage, he stands at the intersection of privilege and responsibility, where every decision, past and present, is open to examination by a public unwilling to look the other way. So, do you think King Charles would ever grant his brother a pardon? For how long could this hatred last? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.